And good morning, everyone. We are here once again with another Caribbean Developer Week session. Today's title, it's going to be what I'm calling the soft skills part of it. The title of today's session, it's not all about ones and zeros, the other skills required to be a good software developer. We have Tremaine, oh Lord, forgive me again, Tremaine Buchanan.
Yes.
Right, lead software architect at 876 Devs.
Yes.
Right, he's gonna be your speaker today in this panel. So let me apologize actually because yesterday I don't think I read out Rohan's description. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of what Tremaine told us about himself here. Well, his name is Tremaine Buchanan, and he's a full-time full stack developer from Jamaica. He's been developing web applications for 4 years now. He loves track and field and food. We all love food. And he tries to mentor young developers. And for the past 3 years, he's been involved in a summer hackathon geared towards adolescents. Can I ask you what's the name of the hackathon?
It's actually in Coders of the Caribbean. It's presented by Next Gen Creators.
Right. Okay. Because I did try to reach out to you guys to try and get you guys on a session, but I kind of dropped the ball when Jaden responded.
Okay. Well, I mean, and it's funny. We had a meeting yesterday about the hackathon. So I mean, if you reach out to me, then I would say, hey, Jaden, how are you for tomorrow? And kind of sneaking because he's a busy guy, very, very busy guy.
Yeah, I saw that. So seeing as that is the case, at any point in time during this session, if you want to talk about that a little bit, you could go on ahead because what happened is our friend of the community and whatnot, who does the Caribbean Tech Forum and whatnot, she really wanted, to help you guys get the word out about what you do and whatnot. So okay, I'm glad the opportunity is there. So enough of me blabbing. I'll just kind of finish the background, monitor the chat room and whatnot. So Tremaine, the floor is all yours. Do your thing.
Okay. All right. And I think I can just continue on the momentum about the Coders of the Caribbean. Again, it's a concept of next-gen creators. Three create, I guess, one teenager and two kind of other guys, a little bit older. They came with a concept of a 42-hour hackathon that takes place in the summer, geared towards adolescents, just to kind of give them that big break in software development. And it has been 4 years running now in Jamaica. I'm not sure if there's any plans to extend it to the Caribbean, but I think that once I sit down with them, we can talk about that. I've been a part of it as a volunteer mentor for the past 3 years. And this year, I've been, appointed the head of the hacker experience, which basically is just to galvanize other mentors to come on board. Every year we try to target 100 hackers. And then this year I want to have at least one mentor per 5 hackers. So at least they get real grounded attention to build the next big thing. It's scheduled for July 13th to 15th of July. And it's along Half-a-Tree Road. I'm not sure if any of the persons listening in is familiar with Jamaica, but it's a nice little space. You are caffeinated all weekend, and you always have myself, and others to rely on in terms of technical assistance, so that you can ideate, you can build something within that 42 hours and wow the judges. Prices are normally lucrative. I think on board we have our main sponsor, I think from last year, which is a National Commercial Bank. They just offer whatever support they can because they also use this hackathon as a recruitment drive to get developers on board in their agile lab. So I guess I think I need to send Jaden an invoice now to kind of bill him for the advertisement I did for him, but it's always for a good cause. All right, so that's the Coders of the Caribbean. in terms of me, well, again, I was introduced. My name is Tremaine. I am a full stack developer. I have a startup called A76 Devs, which the name should change soon because I didn't like it at the initial, but hey, we still get work done. I've been doing development. I started development back in my teenage years, but it wasn't really anything heavy. I kind of really focused after high school, doing it since 2014, full time. So I was in banking for 7 years, and I think that helps me. And I'll touch on that in the soft skills that I think every developer should have. So I was never into IT full blown until I decided, hey, banking is just the same, nothing changes. But you have every day or every 6 months, you have a new framework, you have a new idea, you have a new kind of scope in which you can walk down and say, hey, this is what I want to do. So yeah, that's it basically for that. In terms of building my capacity as a developer, as you know, most organizations, I guess back then in 2014 and now, they are, I think, a little bit jaded against junior developers. I'm not seeing a junior developer role. So what you have to bring to the table, you have to bring something, some kind of development that you have done before to the table. Say, you must have built something before. So with that impetus or with that kind of mindset, I had to enter hackathons locally. So at the time, there was a burgeoning of hackathons within Jamaica and the wider Caribbean, and I took advantage of some of them. So I think I entered 6 hackathons, and most of the hackathons that I entered, I placed. So, and again, that's one of the touching points in some of the tips that are the skills that you need as a developer, I think, to be successful. So I placed in all 6 hackathons. I won't tell the placing, but I think I came second in one. So that's the highest I've gone. Outside of that, I've not really settled on a stack. So most developers would say, hey, I'm a mean stack developer, I am this stack developer and that. I'm more focused on solving a problem and solving a problem efficiently, because a lot of developers don't understand the business side of a project. So when a client steps to you and say, hey, I'll give you $10 US to build this project, you have to put aside your biases towards a particular language or a particular stack to deliver. Because if you don't deliver the value to the customer within that specific time frame, your reputation is damaged. And a lot of developers I've seen choose to damage their, choose a stack, not get the project done, and their reputation suffers as a result. And I think having that reputation intact is something really important, because word travels fast. And in Jamaica, the tech community is not that big. I mean, I've been to meetings and so forth and so on, and you're seeing the same set of faces. So if you collaborate with an individual on a project and that project tanked, word is out there that, yeah, you're not a reliable developer and so forth and so on. So again, that is a part of the skills that I will go to later down, that you must protect your reputation at all time. But I mean, just to kind of give an idea of what the languages that the frameworks and languages that I prefer, I'm an Angular developer on the front end. If I need to do any backend work, I will use between Node.js or PHP. My database of choice is always MySQL, but if there is a need for MongoDB, which is another it's a NoSQL database, I will choose that. And if I need to do any front-end work, I will just lean on the Bootstrap framework or experiment with Boomer. So that in a nutshell is kind of what I use to develop projects that fall under A76 Devs or anything else in my full-time, because my full-time job is actually with a financial institution now. So I do some kind of development in a stack, which I don't really like, but it gets the job done when I need it to. So some of the projects that I've worked on and I really liked throughout the short 4 years that I've developed is agricultural call center application. Basically, it's just an application that we can gather data from farmers. So if a farmer is in the field and he's planting, say, okra or potato or yam, he can just call into a place called the Jamaica Agricultural Society. they'll take his data and put it in this repository of information. And what these call center agents will do now is make the connection between that farmer and somebody in a hotel or some buyer. So that is kind of an application that I wrote in, I think, my second job with a startup called Roots. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but they're a cool set of guys, and I really like that project. When I went into the ministry for 2 years, we worked on, well, a traveling officer kind of database, because what happens is that you have to, whenever it comes to government payments, especially for traveling, that needs to be tracked. And with government tends to be, in my 2 years experience, lack a lot of automated processes and systems. So you find that if you're, facetious, or if you were just, nefarious, let me say that word, you could burn down all the physical files within the ministry and just smile because there's no backup or anything like that. So I tried to push the agenda of digitizing some of the records and so forth. And out of that project, we did that. We started that angle, but I exited the organization. So I'm not sure where that is, but I think I gave them enough momentum. While there, I also built 2 websites using, I think, WordPress at the time. And I think right now in my current and my startup, we're doing, for the current job, I'm just looking at some way to kind of have some kind of dashboard for all our ATMs within Jamaica. And for a tutoring service, well, a service that I'm building up, basically it's almost like a YouTube for tutoring. So we just kind of want, our customers asked me to kind of build out some platform where she can allow persons to view our videos and so forth as a subscription service. So it's a little, I mean, the last 2 projects are a little bit heavy, but yeah. I think definitely the tutoring service application kind of gives me some needed skills, because I think that if you don't approach new problems, I don't think you'll grow as a developer. So, and again, that's also in the skill set that I'll reveal next. But I find that when you take on projects of varying difficulty, it kind of forces you to still look back at decomposing that problem into its small subsets or small modules, and then building and aggregating those modules to complete the project. And trust me, this last one is definitely something that kind of brings you back to your roots of software development and ensures that you kind of build modularly as you build out an application. Yeah. So I think I've spoken a lot about
can I just ask about, just to back up a little earlier, you mentioned 6 hackathons in Jamaica.
Yes.
Okay. Are they all still active? Is that?
Give me a second. I'll plug in my laptop. Okay. They're not. And that's the thing about what was happening in the tech environment or the tech landscape. The World Bank and I think IDB came to Jamaica, and they wanted to try to build out an ecosystem, but I believe they never spent enough time to build it out. So these hackathons were like the starting point, but they weren't a regular feature. So when you did, like, for example, the first one I did second one I did was Digital Jam 3.0, and that was like Caribbean wide. So I think you had a guy from, I could be wrong, but I think Barbados, Shannon. He did a really nice application. I think he's continuing to build that out. But you find out once these hackathons, they're not a regular feature, so they died out. And as such, you find that you'd have to put yourself in an incubator. So we had an incubator called Startup Jamaica, which again, that for some reason was shut down. So entrepreneurs, digital entrepreneurs or tech entrepreneurs don't have that space or that kind of leverage or that kind of opportunity, to build out and come with an idea, build it out and see if it's economically viable. So the only, right now on the calendar, I think the only hackathon that has been going for 4 years is the Coders of the Caribbean. And you may have anything that commemorates something. So Girls in ICT Day, there were actually 2 hackathons geared towards female hackers, but nothing else has been on the radar of late.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So okay. So I think the first, and I think I'll touch back to the one about me being in finance for 7 years. Being in banking sector, you see a lot of processes, you see a lot of things being done, but you cannot. These things are set in stone. So I worked. My first bank was NCB, and then I'm left there. I was there for 1 year as a teller, and then I moved on to CIBC. And CIBC kind of predicates themselves or kind of think about themselves as being very safe. So all their rules have been written in to mitigate against risk. But however, my first thing is having domain knowledge is important. So whenever I would step forward in a hackathon, I can look at a problem and say, okay, will this work in a financial landscape? Because some of the times as a developer, you're not looking at, okay, can this solution fit into the current sphere? So if you came up with a payment gateway or a payment platform, how can you integrate that with a bank? Chances are you have to look at the legislation of, say, for example, Bank of Jamaica, who dictates that, hey, if you're going to be holding anybody's funds, you have to have some kind of recourse period. So if I scan your credit card and I charge you, and the customer refuses to charge, who will be left to bear the brunt, or who would have to reimburse that client? So those things, if you have that domain knowledge, I'm not saying that you have to go and study the whole of the BOJ rules or whatever, but having some kind of other domain knowledge helps you as a developer, because if you should come across a problem that involves that domain, then you have a better insight as to, okay, I'm wearing a business hat now, how is this going to be implemented? Because a lot of times projects die because of the fact that the domain expertise is lacking. And I give you a very I'll give you an example. There was an hackathon that we went to, and the guys came up with an idea called Blaze Payments. So Blaze Payments is where you would use, I think they use the card.io library to scan your credit card, and they use Stripe as a backend to collect the payments. So I mean, no one in Jamaica had anything that could allow a merchant to sell pop up at somewhere and sell some goods and collect payments. So fine, it sounded good on paper. But when I spoke to some of the guys from the development team a year later, they were saying that, boy, the minute that they incorporate their company, they ran into regulatory roadblock, because BOJ asked them, hey, who is going to provide recourse for your application? And that was dead in the waters. So and it's funny, Gigi Wax from Google was here in Jamaica, and he was actually investing in these ideas. So you find that he invested and the project went nowhere. So had they had that, domain expertise, then, they would have come out, they could have said, hey, it doesn't make sense because we can't go over this hurdle. So instead of, I don't know if they wasted the money or anything like that, but having domain knowledge, I believe, outside of ICT is a soft skill that a lot of developers should have. And if they don't have it, just take up a book, just, talk to somebody who's in a domain outside of IT, just to pick their brain. They said that some of us are socially awkward. It is true. I've seen developers that are total hermits, but in order for you to move ahead or to kind of be king of the roost, so to speak, you have to have some kind of knowledge outside of ICT. So that's definitely something that I would want to tell any developer to get involved in, just to have that domain expertise. Community involvement, it's big on my agenda, because one, you learn how to, again, come out of your comfort zone and speak to other people. You learn how to network. And to be honest, it is still present in most organizations where a good network is the best value that you will have. So if you're going for a job and you know somebody on the board or whomever, the interviewing panel, it kind of helps you to kind of calm your nerves. I'm not saying that, you should always just kind of find everybody to kind of buy your way into an organization. No. But knowing persons, you can get a call tomorrow. Hey, I heard that you're this kind of developer. Can you help me out with this? And it will open opportunities for you. So for me, I've never looked at any of my community involvement as kind of a way to kind of get clout around. I just want to know that, hey, I'm helping somebody move forward. So when I go to Coders of the Caribbean, that's 42 hours worth of no sleep. And imagine you're sitting down coding for 42 hours and, nobody is, nobody is dealing with you. So, sorry, no, you don't get any sleep and you're irritated and all that. But the joy of the 42 hours is that, you have helped somebody build, taking a concept out of, thin air and kind of put that in 1's and 0's and presented that to a judging panel. So that is that's how I look at community involvement, but others can look at it to a different perspective where they can use it to kind of move forward in their career and just to be a better developer overall. My next point, trying new technologies. So it's funny, when I interviewed for my current position, I did not have the requisite qualifications for the position. And I'm still scratching my head to even this moment to kind of think, okay, what got me through the door? I didn't know anybody interview panel. I believe that I was still, maybe somewhat of a junior developer. I wasn't like an intermediate that based on the job qualifications. But because when they looked at my resume, they saw that I was looking at other technologies outside of the traditional technologies. So a lot of persons will say, hey, why are you doing Node.js development? Because, Node has, JavaScript is just not typed, and a lot of, issues and so forth that were raised. But I still try them to kind of say, okay, I can give merit to the reason I use MySQL over this technology and so forth and so on. So a lot of developers tend to be very myopic on in terms of their stack. So they will say, yes, this is the best stack ever, and they don't you can't declare something being the best if you never tried anything else and have a comparison. So a lot of times I'm in talks with other developers, and they will say, hey, this is the reason why I do this, but they have never tried that other one and even failed, and say, okay, this is the reason I'll never use this. They always have a kind of their own perspective on their technology.
But typing is really such an issue in the Caribbean, because you're not the first person I heard to mention, JavaScript is not type and whatnot. Is that really an issue amongst developers in the Caribbean?
I think it's not an issue per se, but whenever I see, whenever I hear persons talk, so I think it comes out of the enterprise mindset. So for example, in Jamaica, most of the development is done for banks, financial institutions, insurance companies, institutions that have rules. So when you have a language that does not, you don't have to propose a type initially. Then you find that it has, when they're doing their integrity checks and so forth and so on, it won't necessarily bode well for the language itself. So a lot of persons will move away from that and stick to a Java, C#, or something that is, is a typed language. And they like the reliability of those. So when you come, you'd have to come very good with an argument for somebody to use Node.js as a backend language. Right now, that argument is dying down easily because TypeScript is here to the rescue. So TypeScript will be that static type language that will allow Node.js developers to write their applications in Node.js, and it will compile. You could write it in TypeScript and it will compile the JS, and it will kind of solve that issue. But most of the time I've spoken to developers, they kind of shun those loosely typed languages. And definitely Python is also in that realm. So whilst you can put that static typing in Python, persons still kind of shy away. So the big three in Jamaica for backend development, Java, C#, or big two, I guess, because I've not heard anybody use anything outside of those two. And I've not seen much job applications that ask for anything outside of that stack, unless it's a startup, which I think Slashshoots was one of the only advertisements I've ever seen that said, hey, we want a Node.js developer, So, but again, trying new technologies is a must for any developer, and it kind of also helps you in the workplace. So if you're where I'm at now, we would there's that issue came up that was easily solved by just using Node.js as just maybe a test runner or whatever. So you find that when you have tried something, you can argue a point and say, hey, why is it not something that we'll use for the core application? Maybe we can use it for other pieces or parts of the puzzle that are outside of the core that can do testing and support and so on. And it's easier to write a test in, say, Node or JavaScript instead of writing it in maybe C#. Because again, I don't have much experience in C#, so if I got something to write, I would kind of lean toward doing it in JavaScript or in PHP and kind of get the job done. But I've never, introduced it into the core of application, because again, these organizations have their rules and they set out the rules and say, hey, follow them to the T. So, yeah. This now, I think, is just about ownership. And a lot of developers, some of the developers I've worked with, I've never taken ownership in terms of a project. So ownership to me is, we have a project that we need to deliver in 3 months. Just because you have never done the deployment to the server, or you have never done setting up the database or whatever, doesn't mean that you're supposed to be. You're not supposed to just use that as a handicap. And I've seen where I've sat down late nights to deploy an application when I've never used the tools that we need to deploy the application, but we have to get it to the customer. So a lot of times developers will just get up and walk out and go and leave, and that is frowned upon or seen by a manager as, boy, he's not, whilst he's technically inclined, he doesn't have that hands-on or get it done kind of attitude. And I think having that, it helps anyone, whether you're a janitor or anyone, to own the process, own the project. I think a lot of developers need to understand that, because managers are looking on. Managers kind of look at you every day and say, okay, he is the potential team lead, he's not the potential team lead. And I don't think any developers strive to just be a developer the rest of their lives. Some of them want to graduate to a system architect to say, hey, we dictate the structure of the application and you guys code it. So a lot of times when persons ask me, hey, how is it that you are able to move into a job that easily? I said, well, it's about just taking ownership of the projects, following them through to implementation. And then if there's anything that pops up, so if there's a bug that pops up, don't just say, all right, that's for the DBA or that's for that. If it's something that you can handle it. If it's not, then kind of just again, go to DBA, maybe sit with them and say, hey, I understand that this problem was here. How can we resolve it in the future? So that kind of ownership, taking that ownership will help a whole lot. And I've seen it for myself, that it helps out a lot. All right. I think taking initiative. So I think this flowed into from the ownership aspect. Taking initiative is also something that I believe developers need to, look at as a skill, because you're assigned maybe a task to do this alone. That doesn't mean that when you finish that task, then there's nothing else to do, because the project still has to go forward. I've seen where a developer that's on my team now, there was a big issue with a part of the application, and he took the initiative to rewrite that whole aspect of the application, which is admirable, and it kind of saved us some time in terms of it shaved off some of the backlog that we had, which is something that, again, developers should think about whenever they're working in an organization, because again, managers are looking for those persons who take initiative, because it kind of shows some leadership qualities in that individual. And I mean, it's just good. It's just a good place to be when you know that somebody can just pick up the ball and score. So it's not like you're the defender, but that doesn't mean that you can't take initiative and carry the ball to the middle of the field and kick the ball at the goal. So taking initiative is something that, again, some developers may have it and some developers don't, and I think that is something that they should engender in themselves. And I guess last but not least, communication. I can sit down for hours and talk to another developer about, okay, big O notation, or I can sit down with a developer and say, hey, let us let us find another way to write a new database application or whatever. But when it comes to managers or other project managers or team leads, sometimes these team leads are out of the loop. Sometimes these team leads just want to know can you get it done? If you don't communicate or articulate that to them in a way that they understand that they can carry it to their senior management, then you will fail to communicate. And I always tell people that communication is not just sending or delivering a message, is the recipient should understand that message. And a lot of times whenever I talk to the developers at the hackathons, I say, okay, break it down to me. Tell me like I'm a 5-year-old. Speak to me like I'm a 5-year-old. Tell me the problem that you're having, because if I don't understand, I can carry your problem forward or to escalate that problem. So a lot of times developers will be in their zone and talking about all kinds of technical jargon, which does not help management. Management wants to hear, okay, where are we? How are we going to get it solved? And what's the timeline? And again, developers don't understand that business aspect of any project that they do, because they're more focused on, okay, can I get this pixel perfect? Can I do this and that? And it's something that I think most developers must try at least to kind of just, say, hey, how can I tell somebody about the blockchain? What kind of metaphor, what kind of idea that is out there that I can translate it to? And once they can do that, then I think they'll be more effective in articulating their issues to management or any team lead. So yeah, breaking down ideas is something that the developers must have. It must be a skill, right? So I see where I'm breaking up. I don't know if it's my connection, but I think, oh, okay. All right, so that's pretty much it that I have for my presentation. I think I've spoken for a half an hour. I knew that it was an hour long, but I could ramble on more. But I think those are the top 6 for me. I don't see anything else that right now a developer would need soft skills. Resume creation, that's a given. You can pay somebody to write a resume. I don't think you need to write a resume that well. But I think on the resume tip, the only thing I can say is just ensure that you put the relevant projects that apply to a specific job. So I remember when I did an interview out of Germany for a position, they wanted a Node.js developer. So I would never put on any PHP projects or any WordPress projects. No, I put on those projects that would look good to a Node.js, a company that wants to hire a Node.js developer. But outside of that, I think those are the top 6 things that any developer should do. And just to recap, breaking down, let me start from the bottom, or the top, sorry. Domain expertise or domain knowledge outside of ICT, community involvement, whether it's tech related, trying new technologies as they come out, owning aspects of a project or taking ownership within a development project, and that leads into taking initiative. And again, the last thing is just breaking down complex ideas into simple terms for non-technical individuals. All right. So I guess the floor is open for any questions.
Yeah, let me apologize on my end. I have to, oh wait, think again, that echo.
What's the day to cut grass?
Yeah, fine day. So yeah, we do have some questions.
Okay.
Popping up, so I'll get to those questions in a minute. But since you went through more as a bulk of your presentation, I do want to talk a little bit about some of the things you mentioned. Okay. So when they're taking ownership, right, can I kind of replace that and say basically taking responsibility?
Yeah, yes, you can. Yes, yes.
Okay, so then let me ask you, as a software developer, slightly contentious issue from time to time. What is your position on actual ownership of the work that you do? Like, with regards to things like copyright and whatnot.
Oh, I think, I guess I can answer that question with an example. At work now, we are deploying an application. So I'm taking ownership of, or taking responsibility for getting the project from our UAT or development server into the production server. In terms of copyright and so forth and so on, I would not step out of that boundary because it affects the metrics down the road. So for example, if I write a copy that says, instead of writing add to cart, I would say add to trolley. That would not bode well for a user because they're saying, oh, add to trolley, what the hell is a trolley? So if you are outside of his skill set, I can't say take responsibility for that. But if you want to learn and you cannot give them heads up to say, hey, I don't know copy, but this is what I think can work, then that is something that I think will help the situation. But not necessarily say, okay, I'm going to write the copy and then you kind of give them garbage, you know? So I don't know if that's my response or that's my take on that.
Yeah, that's also interesting. That's not exactly what I was talking about, but that's also interesting because you did mention having domain knowledge, and in that respect, that also means that you kind of know your limits and your boundaries, which
Exactly.
is, makes a lot of sense. What I was actually talking about was um basically who actually owns the work that you do and whatnot.
Oh, ownership.
Right?
Okay.
That's why I said slightly. That's why I said slightly contentious, because I know in the States they actually have a law. I heard about something, I can't remember the name, but I think it's like when you do work for hire, that belongs to the company that hired you. But I don't think we have those kind of noise again. Sorry. Go on.
I think and I would go down to reading your contract. So I've had a situation where that was said in my contract that anything that I do within a certain time or a certain hour of the day belongs to them, and I said no. I don't believe that any of my side projects should be yours. If that is in my contract, then what I will do, I will say, okay, I don't take home the laptops. If I'm logging on, if I'm using, I always use a version control system. So I would say, okay, the timestamp I will put on a push is, for example, 7 p.m. So 7 p.m. is not within the realm of the 8 to 5 day. But I don't think companies should enforce that, because what you're doing is stymieing their creativity. When they say, hey, you guys can't, we own whatever you create. No, because a lot of times some companies' problems are solved in your spare time. Because if I have an issue at work and I go home and say, I need to write a library for this because I can't do this thing every single day. And you present it to work, but you want to open source it. I don't think the organization should take ownership of that. So a lot of times, a lot of us kind of get into this problem of ownership by does not read in the contract, and that's the best defense against an issue like that.
Yeah, I agree. Once again, I apologize for the noise because they're using a blower now. Oh, it looks like they stopped. Sounds a little odd. Yeah, so let me get to the questions then.
Okay.
That I'm seeing here. So allow me to just find that screen. So I believe this is Shannon's handle. So Shannon from Barbados is actually here.
Okay. Hi, Shannon.
Right. He actually asked about, I don't know if he was being sarcastic or whatnot, but he asked about chill and code, and he asked, can we fly in to chill and code?
Oh, chill and code. Yeah, well, I mean, we can arrange that. We can definitely arrange that, because I think we have also, there's another movement called Hacker Hostel. And I'm not sure if Shannon is aware that where Akua, I think he knows Akua, and I think he knows Winston Wilkins. And they have basically a caravan-wide kind of initiative every summer to take developers and kind of have pair those individuals with organizations to build out software. So definitely that is something that he can definitely come and be a part of, because I think it's a summer-long thing, and they get not only an experience, an immersion in software development, but they kind of get to visit sites in Jamaica. So I think I saw some photos recently of them being in, I think Usain Bolt's tracks and records in Ocho Rios and so forth and so on. So they're having a jolly good time while they're solving engineering problems. So definitely, Shannon, if once you're ready, you can just book your ticket. It's pretty expensive to come to Jamaica from Barbados, because I've been to Barbados once, and wow, what a ticket price! But definitely, he can come forward. I don't know why traveling the Caribbean is so expensive, because I mean, I want to go to Europe, and I think when I looked up the ticket prices between Europe, it's pretty cheap.
I think that's that travel I've seen. I can't remember their name. I think it's the Association of Caribbean States or something like that. They have written articles, at least in the locally in Trinidad, in the newspaper about that whole traveling between the Caribbean islands. You know, that's something I've looked up on a lot actually, and you know, basically the more we do actual trade with each other and kind of try to make the trade take it to the furthest levels it could go on, that kind of thing, the more we have that kind of integration, the cheaper that's going to get, because as it is right now, most of the islands kind of like, you know, the focus tends to be like outside of the Caribbean, which is good, but we have to have that infrastructure within the region. I'm actually hoping someday that, you know, we could have some kind of hackathon on an issue like that or something like that, but more in the future.
Yeah, I think we can propose it as one of the ideas for Coast of the Caribbean. So thanks for that idea.
No problem. So another thing here, speaking of Coders of the Caribbean, are there any projects you can share that came from Coders of the Caribbean?
Oh wow, that's a good thing. Coders of the Caribbean. I'm thinking. Wow. There is, well, no. The thing is that most of them, I don't think they survived Coders of the Caribbean. That's the ones that won. I don't think they have survived, but I can definitely maybe share something after I can speak to Jadon, because a lot of them, what happened is that we try to give them support after, but I think the focus was just to kind of get them out there in front of the NCBs, in front of the yellow pages, and give them kind of that platform. So it's something that we want to think about incubating, but a lot of times the incubation is always done by some other entity and they do it well. So for example, Branson Center is one of a person that we reach out to say, hey, once these persons win, we want to kind of give them an opportunity to be mentored by individuals from Branson Center of entrepreneurship, and just kind of hand them off. So I can't think right off the bat what has come out of it, but I definitely need to create a log of those entries and see where they are right now. But I can say definitely that coming out of the last hackathon, I think 3 of the hackers are actually working for either NCB, National Commercial Bank, or they're working for a company that is in their Agile lab. So that is something, you know, of a consolation, so to speak, that, you know, these developers there's a light being shone on them in this hackathon, and, you know, there's prospects out them outside of the hacking experience.
Okay. So I have a comment here from Denzel Doyle. It's not a question. I guess well, you know, some developers use the technical jargon just to sound smart. So
and that's true because I mean, I remember when I don't remember the term, but I think it was Hadoop. And every meeting or everywhere I would go, I hear somebody talk about Hadoop this and Hadoop that. And I just had a question and I said, okay, what's Hadoop? I didn't know what it was, but around the right people, around other people, they're saying, yeah, Hadoop is the next big thing, and so forth and so on. And I never bothered research. I think Hadoop is some kind of, I don't remember what it was, but I mean,
I think it's like for large file storage and or setting up your databases. It's to do with data storage, basically.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I mean, to throw that out, and he's right. Sometimes we do use that, and that's why I want to always emphasize break down our technical stuff so that a non-technical user can use it, because again, you may be asked to write a proposal to say, hey, you know, how can we get this done? And I will never write a proposal with any technical jargon in mind. Even if there's a technical jargon, I will just kind of either put a blurb around it or have a link towards it. So definitely, I agree with that comment.
Okay, no problem. Is this a question? Just a second. Partnering with domain experts is indeed a key part of building solutions that can work in existing systems. So I guess that's another comment. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I didn't learn. I understood it from a financial perspective, but there was somebody that spoke to me about what happened. I think Finland has some kind of global entrepreneur conference every year, and I think they take participants from Jamaica and other countries to be a part of that. And I remember speaking to a female that went to the last event, and she said that the person who won was actually a farmer that knew when that basically built a kind of device, a wearable that was placed on the cows, and that will determine when they're the best time to milk them and produce 15% more yield. So without, I mean, he didn't really have the IT background, but he knew his cows. So he knew that there's a time when they would again produce more milk, but he didn't know the exact time because every cow would differ, because of their unique characteristics. But he knew that, and he won basically a funding to kind of build those devices so that he can provide to farmers. They have some countries that they're heavily involved in export of or milk production. So that would definitely help them to produce more milk.
Right, that sounds very interesting. Yeah. So any other questions anyone wants to ask, feel free to drop them in the chat channel there on YouTube. If you're watching on something other than YouTube, depending on the network you're using, you could use hashtag Caribbean Developer Week, and hopefully we see those questions. This has been pretty positive, pretty good so far. I like these talks because I have complained a lot in the past that it's very difficult, to get that balance in the field. You meet people who know their stuff, highly technical, and they don't really care about anything else.
Yeah.
On the other hand, like where I'm at, we see like a whole bunch of like groups and people who talk a lot of technical stuff, not even like, the Hadoop level and whatnot. They talk about getting into the digital age and blah, 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 but they don't really know much about the technology. They're just basically selling hype. Yeah. So it's always good to get that kind of balance, because one of the things I say is we use a lot of these technologies as developers and technical people, but also as the average person, but we tend not to understand what's going on, and moving forward, that's dangerous. And I think we who actually work in the field kind of have a responsibility, if you will, to like mankind, and to kind of bridge the gap and make sure we're not too, the average person is not too far from understanding what it is they depend on. So communication skills is definitely important to do that, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, we're human. We're the human part of the equation, and without that, communication aspect, then it might as well be having the robots talking to each other and creating their own language. So that's definitely at the forefront. We have to be able to articulate our views, and anything that we're working on, we have to say, hey, this is how it will work. We don't have to go into the technicalities. We just need to say, hey, this is how it works. And then this is the benefits, these are the drawbacks, and so forth. And that will help the ecosystem grow, because it will reduce the distance between the non-technical and the technical users. And I think that's something that I'm striving for. I hope that whenever I talk to somebody about technology, they'll be just as enthused as I am to say, hey, I don't understand what's going on, but I like what I'm hearing.
Yeah. There's actually a really fun movie, I think from the 1970s or 80s, called Colossus, I think it is. It's about, I don't know if you ever say it, but it's about they built this supercomputer that basically started talking to another supercomputer, and just all hell broke loose as the computers kept getting smarter and smarter. So people can check that out if you have time, Colossus.
I think, well, go ahead.
No, you go on.
No, I was saying that, what's funny is that whenever I watch any movie, I kind of am a little bit afraid that these things coming, is it art imitating life or life imitating art? And I just leave it there.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Well, I've never actually been to Jamaica, but I have family who studied there, friends who studied there and whatnot, and, met people from there and whatnot. I'm always intrigued and I always like to try to see if I could get like a comparison between Jamaica and like say Trinidad, because Trinidad and Tobago, sorry, is like energy rich, right? And we have a ridiculous budget for a small island.
Yeah.
And with that comes a lot of problems. We have our tech scene here, sort of, it's largely fragmented. But for me as an outsider looking at the Jamaican tech scene, I always find it looks a lot more organized, and there seems to be harmony. I mean, at points in time, I would meet people who are not even aware of like the rest of what's going on in Jamaica. But it seems like the whole tech scene in Jamaica has been booming somewhat for quite some time. So, what do you think is like the driving force behind Jamaica's, I guess, tech scene? As I said, what do you think keeps that going?
Well, I think one person I can attribute it to two things, and I'll start with a person. I know she's not watching, but Ingrid Riley has been, she's a part of Connect Mass and Silicon Carib. And I think her involvement in the space is kind of the glue that kind of pulls everybody together, because she has I think it's a quarterly Kingston Beta event. And I think that pulls out all the community members to that one location, and we sit, we talk online, we talk about things in the tech industry, and also you have a chance to pitch. So that those type of events, having those events and having those individuals who are integral in the fabric that makes up the tech scene in Jamaica is crucial, and I think that has been a mainstay for the last 10 years. Unfortunately, from June, this is the last one, so I don't know. Yeah, so June, I think next week, I think it's either next week, Tuesday or Thursday is the last of it. So it's the end of an era, but I think somebody will take the mantle and carry it forward. So that is definitely one of the centerpieces in terms of keeping the tech community together. And I think also the government has played some part in that, because prior to the current administration, Julian Robinson, which is a member of parliament, he was the main driver in terms of having these hackathons and having these kind of competitions in place. Not to say that the current minister is not doing as much, but yeah, with that impetus, a lot of students, I think they reached out and they kind of pulled the students in to the idea that they can be entrepreneurs and they can move forward in a tech space. They find that these students are listening. They're saying, okay, yes, we want to be a part of this, and they're pushing, they're pulling out the stops to make sure that they participate, they are part of the community. So again, it's both individual and government-wise. I think that has been the kind of mechanisms that help to kind of shape our tech ecosystem, and hopefully we can move forward. And I think that will come down to a lot more investment and a lot more from corporate Jamaica in terms of pushing that agenda.
Yeah, I think Ingrid is doing like a lot of amazing work, actually. Very consistent as well.
Yeah.
There's some other people as well. I think media is very important. Like general, media that covers the regional tech industry is very important. And there are a few people who have been consistently doing their thing and contributing. So salute to them, because, if they don't cover some of the things that are happening, we really would know, because like here in Trinidad and Tobago, tech news is usually the latest iPhone, which is very depressing for me. But anyway, but Tremaine, we have 3 minutes left. Anything you want to take the opportunity to say to not just whoever is viewing right now, but people who would see the video afterwards and whatnot?
Well, two things. I want to kind of give you guys props. I saw this on my LinkedIn feed and I just jumped on it straight away. So I'm happy that outside of Jamaica, someone else or some group of individuals and organizations want to kind of have a more amalgamated Caribbean and by extension a more amalgamated tech community. So we can talk to individuals from different parts of the Caribbean to say, hey, this is what we are doing in our different jurisdictions, and see how best we can speak on matters and talk about tech. So, and that is a start. And for me, I think the whole Caribbean can be a Silicon Caribbean if the right organizations and players come together and have this one big archipelago island, so to speak, come together and gonna be a force in technology. Also, I want to also kind of put another spot in there for another event that's happening in Jamaica. It's called Webcraft Conference. It's in July. I am going to be one of the speakers on using or building applications about using Angular, the new Angular. So that is something to look out for. I guess I can share that details with you guys. Basically, this is out of the a movement that I'm a part of also called Make Better Software. So what we want to do, we want to kind of meet up every quarter, just to kind of lime and talk about the best practices that each of us are using in our different organizations, and just kind of ensure that we kind of keep abreast of what's going on. So out of those talks, this Webcraft conference is going to happen in July. So I can share the link in, I guess, the group chat, and you guys can share with your community going forward. So that's it from me.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So with respect to that, then I'd mention to you, not too sure if you might be aware already, but we have a Facebook group, Caribbean Developers.
Yes.
There you could meet a couple of developers. We're trying to balance it out a little bit because we have a lot of members from Trinidad and Tobago. Okay. There's also another group called the Caribbean Tech Forum. They're largely based on Slack, but they tend to send out newsletters from time to time, telling people what's going on in the region, and have meetups once in a while and whatnot. There's also, I think, a group based in New York, I think Caribbeans in Tech Entrepreneurship or something, that just starting to get off the ground. So at this point, I'm just mentioning some of the various tech communities with our Caribbean focus I've come across. Of course, there's the stuff like the Silicon Caribbean, I think there's the ICT Pulse blog, and a couple other stuff out there too. So definitely. So this is the Webcraft
conference.
And you said Make Better Software.
Yeah, so the group that idealizes is the group is Make Better Software. So we have a meetup every quarter. So we kind of just say, hey, let us do a conference and get some people to talk about just kind of building better software.
Will this be online or will it only be offline?
I can speak to the organizer. I think we want to set up a feed so that we can have persons join in. Let me definitely talk to him about that, because again, the community is so close that you know who's putting on the event. So David Bain. So David Bain has 2 other startups. So yeah, I can definitely ask him that there will be interest from the wider Caribbean in the conference. So definitely we can look towards something like that. So yeah. So those who can't make it, because again, the cost of traveling is something, but it definitely will be a good conference. Hopefully everything falls in line. So yeah, so I definitely reach out to him to find out if we can get some kind of video link so that persons can join in online.
Yeah, because this is definitely you're talking my area of interest here. I've definitely spent a lot of hours trying to learn and continue trying to learn how to write better software, because I'm highly interested in especially maintainable systems and stable systems.
Yeah,
that's kind of my area of focus. So great, lovely stuff. So Tremaine, thank you very much for hopping on and doing this and basically kind of making that intersection in the Venn diagram of Caribbean software developers and whatnot. Really appreciate it. This was great. You talked about domain, having that domain knowledge, being part of your community, trying new things, and being able to break down things simply for people.
Right.
And I missed out just one actually.
I think taking initiative and ownership, basically.
Right, taking the initiative.
Responsibility.
Right. So thank you so much for that. And thank everyone who was willing to come out and watch this video, this live stream during. I think there's not much going on right now, actually. So thank you for that.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Iceland is playing, I think, Nigeria. So it's basically if Iceland wins, Argentina is out. So the Argentine fans are cheering on Nigeria, because if Nigeria wins, then it will set up a mouth-watering contest between Argentina and Nigeria, because Argentina would not have to not only beat Nigeria, but beat them by a large margin to get to the second round.
Right. So, and also thank you who would be viewing this video after the fact. So we have just about, let me see, 3 more sessions. 2 more today. One will be coming up. Well, tomorrow is going to be like the grand finale panel discussion. I have to double check and make sure it's not falling between any major matches. But the next session is going to be, let me just get my trusty calendar here because I can't keep all these things in my head. I think it's going to be another kind of soft skills type of session. Let me see, where is it? Learning your value as a team player, right? That's going to be with Ian's with Spence. And then this afternoon at 5, well, that's going to be at 1 o'clock. So that's going to be in half an hour, actually.
Okay.
And then at 5 o'clock, these times are all UTC -4, of course. At 5 o'clock, we have Nicholas Mendez talking about progressive web apps and next generation of web. Yeah, that should be interesting. And yeah, that will be it. So again, thanks everyone for coming out. I hope for seeing you. I hope, that I see you at the next session, people. So have a good day, and we'll be back on in half an hour.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.